Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Heroes of the Storm is the game, and these are the 5 worst heroic abilities in the game. Now, most heroes have kind of character-defining heroic abilities that can turn the tide of a battle and win you games single-handedly. There are a lot of great heroics out there. And then there are some heroics which virtually never see play, and almost always signal that you made a mistake when choosing your talents at level 10. So these are the 5 heroics that should almost never be picked and are decidedly worse and may in fact hurt your chances at winning compared to the alternative selection. So starting off with number 5, it is Nazeebo and the heroic ability Ravenous Spirit. So most people don't think that Ravenous Spirit is all that bad. You channel a spirit, it does tons of damage. Basically, Nazeebo plants himself on the ground, and there's this chain with this giant voodoo dude who goes out and attacks the enemies. And a well-timed, well-placed Ravenous Spirit can do tons of damage and really influence a team fight. But there are a couple problems with this. Nazeebo has to plant himself on the ground. He's unable to move, unable to react. So he's basically self-stunning himself for the full 8-second duration of Ravenous Spirit. So against organized teams at high-level play and really even mid-level play, it's very easy for them to jump on Nazeebo and punish this decision. A lot of people also don't think Gargantuan is all that good because it's chaotic and it just roams around the battlefield punching people, and it's very difficult to control, and it doesn't seem all that influential. But the thing is, when you look at the actual data, Hotslogs.com data says that Ravenous Spirit has a 6% lower win rate than Gargantuan. Now, Nazeebo is the highest win rate character in the game, but choosing Ravenous Spirit, or at least the kinds of players who tend to choose Ravenous Spirit, win 6% fewer games. That's the biggest difference between 2 heroic abilities win rates that I could find on Hotslogs. I myself was kind of surprised by how bad Ravenous Spirit is, but data doesn't really lie. It's pretty terrible. I've always chose Gargantuan because that's the most popular pick, and in higher level play, it's just too easy to get punished with Ravenous Spirit. But I'm still surprised. But again, 6% worse. That's why it's barely cracking the list as the 5th worst heroic for me. So let's go ahead and move on to number 4. And it is actually Lieutenant Morales' level 10 heroic Medivac Dropship. You're probably familiar with this one. Lieutenant Morales can summon a Medivac transport ship onto the battlefield. She hops inside. Her teammates can also join her, and she can fly it to any given point on the battlefield. At level 20, it can be upgraded to give you a heal as well. The problem with Medivac Dropship is that it's very hard to know when to use it. It's very hard to get teams organized to jump in the Medivac with you. It's very easy to throw if the opponent spots the location or can predict where you're going, because you basically just deposit your team in a clump that allows them to sync up all kinds of area of effect damage or stuns and basically just wombo combo you. It can also make you a little bit susceptible when you jump in the Medivac. The opponents have time to burn through it and kill your team as they sit right there in the Medivac. Once you come out, it's just another chaotic wombo combo you're setting up for them. So Medivac in the right situations, obviously, yeah, you can go steal the boss. Yeah, you can dive to the core and win the game. But those are so few and far between that you're wasting the opportunity to use a heroic ability the rest of the game. So Medivac Dropship actually has a 5% lower win rate than does Stim Drone. And I would argue even if your team has all spellcasters, no auto attackers, Stim Drone is probably still a better choice just because it can provide 25% movement speed. And even on a mage like Jaina, a little bit of attack damage boost is still worth something. Whereas Medivac is just so difficult to use and can throw the game so easily that you should virtually never pick it, and in fact, most people don't, thankfully, ever pick Medivac Dropship, because it is the 4th worst heroic ability in Heroes of the Storm. So let's move on to number 3. Belongs to a hero by the name of Tychus, and it is the heroic Commander Odin. You've probably seen this one before. Tychus calls down this giant mech Odin thing And he gets some new abilities. He does a little bit of extra damage. He has a giant visual impact on the battlefield. But unfortunately, Commander Odin doesn't do a couple things that it should, which is it doesn't give Tychus additional health like it used to. So he operates with the same health pool. He also basically paints a literal giant target on his back. He becomes so big and so obvious that it's very easy for opponents to focus him down. And since he doesn't gain really any extra defensive utility, it's very easy to die when you're in Commander Odin. It's also just worse than Draken Laser Drill because that gives you safe poke. It adds an additional body to the field. Opponents tend to ignore it, so it can really chunk damage away before they even realize what's happening. It's basically the opposite of Commander Odin in its function, and it has the exact same cooldown and mana cost, so there's really no upside to choosing Commander Odin at all. It's just worse in every imaginable way. Tychus currently, at the time of this video, has the worst win rate in all of Heroes of the Storm. He's officially the worst hero in the game. And this is the worst of his 2 heroics by a few percentage points, which officially means that this is the lowest win rate heroic in Heroes of the Storm. So by the numbers, by the data, totally, Commander Odin is the worst heroic in the game. But for me, it's only number 3 because it's not necessarily bad in every single situation. So let's move on to the second worst heroic in Heroes of the Storm. It actually belongs to Murky, and it is March of the Murlocs. Command a legion of Murlocs to march in a target direction, each one leaping onto the first enemy hero or structure they find. Does a little bit of damage. It slows by 15% for 5 seconds, and it does half damage to structures. So, of course, Murky's most popular heroic is Octograb because it's incredibly good. Not only does it lock a person in place, but it stuns them for 3 seconds, essentially operating as a really long silence that's an instant kill on anyone that you're able to get it, particularly if you can use it with your pufferfish in combo for lots of extra damage. So this is just the ultimate isolator tool. Get a kill, get a pick in the late game, influence the battlefield, force a cleanse. There's so many different things that Octograb can do really well. Plus it has a 50-second cooldown, so it's up quite often, which is important as Murky because you're up quite often as well. March of the Murlocs, on the other hand, is a very passive effect. It's very easy for opponents to just kind of walk away from March of the Murlocs. Has a super long cooldown at 100 seconds, so it's twice as long as Octograb. Doesn't do much to structures since it does half damage. The 15% slow, while long for 5 seconds, 15% is pretty measly when it comes to a slow. You'll note that even your basic ability Slime slows enemies by 20%. So, compared to everything else in Murky's kit, March of the Murlocs just doesn't really synergize or do much or make an impact at all. In fact, it drops his win rate by 5% for people who choose March of the Murlocs over Octograb. So, maybe if they have 3 or 4 cleanses, Octograb is not particularly good, but otherwise, Octograb is far and away the best choice. And March of the Murlocs probably signals that you're either an inexperienced Murky player or just making very poor decisions about your heroic abilities. So, March of the Murlocs, the second worst heroic ability in Heroes of the Storm, but it's not the worst. I've got one more. This may or may not surprise you, but the worst heroic ability in the game actually belongs, let's get a better skin here, to Greymane. And it is not, of course, his popular heroic, Go for the Throat. It is, in fact, the other one. You probably don't even know what it does. You've never actually seen it in a game, I would guess. It's called Marked for the Kill. It's got a 60-second cooldown. You shapeshift into a human and fire a shot, hitting the first enemy hero for 68 damage. For 5 seconds, they are vulnerable, taking 25% more damage, and you can reactivate this to leap at them, shapeshift into a Worgen. Usually when it takes a full paragraph to describe a heroic ability's impact, it's either too complicated or too difficult to use, and that's exactly what's wrong with Marked for the Kill. I was kind of baited into liking this heroic when I first started playing Greymane, but I too have realized just how unreliable and inconsistent this heroic is. The advantages it offers are so difficult to pull off and are so passive in nature that they're just inherently worse then Go for the Throat. Go for the Throat gives you the instant impact that Greymane has to have. He has to dive in and get kills immediately when he's in Worgen form. It's not about necessarily poking away all the time. That Marked for the Kill would essentially support that playstyle. It's got a bad win rate. Greymane's got a high win rate, so this is a definite signal of doom if you pick Marked for the Kill, but thankfully almost no one does. It has one of the lowest pick rates in the entire game at 2%, so nobody's playing Marked for the Kill. Everyone else recognizes just how bad this heroic ability is as well. So thankfully, until Blizzard makes some changes, no one is choosing Marked for the Kill. No one has to be burdened with just how bad this heroic is, because Go for the Throat is actually a fantastic one in contrast. And right now, I don't think there's a bigger difference in a great heroic and a bad one on such a strong hero. I think that's why Marked for the Kill is the worst heroic ability in Heroes of the Storm. And that's it for my list. I'm sure that you'll think I'm crazy or challenge my assertions. I've tried to use data and experience to back them up. But if you have some heroics you think are worse than these, let me know. I'd be happy to discuss them with you in the comments. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.